Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, this is David Lee at the Pre-Uni New College Head Office. How are you? Welcome, everyone. Yes, tonight's webinar is for our Year 4 parents, especially new parents. And I'd like to share some information about this year's OC placement test, with the latest information. So we will cover the application and test format, outcome, and also the guide for the preparation for the exam. So I will try to do my best to make this time as valuable as possible. And let's get started. Firstly, I'd like to thank everyone for your great support throughout the term. And it's nearly end of the term, so we are conducting the end of term test. So all the students is expected to complete their online term test by tomorrow night, please, so that we can prepare for the reports and provide valuable feedback for your child. Okay. If you have any issue with the online term test, you can just contact the center manager or at the head office, or by email or over the phone. Okay. If you have any question during my presentation, you can leave it on the chat box, and I will address at the end. And then I will go through all the questions and answer as many questions as possible. And also, we are recording this webinar session so that you can watch it again after the presentation. So if you missed any part, you can replay and catch up. Okay. So I think I already explained about the opportunity class last year, term 4. So getting into the OC school would be very challenging, as you know. It's very challenging goal for our students. So to make it succeed, we should be aware of all the latest information about the exam and prepare well in advance. So opportunity class is located in government primary school, and it is to cater for the academically gifted students, and they will provide year 5 and 6 gifted and talented curriculum. So it's 2 years education system in New South Wales. It's very popular for high potential students. So the OC students normally perform very well in the next state exam, like the selective school exam or the private school exam. They perform very well. So getting into the OC is a very good goal to set for our year 4 students. So this table shows the available OC schools with OC. So there are 75 primary schools. They are operating the special class, opportunity class. So the yellow colored school is one of the most popular school, top 30 schools. And most schools will accept 30 students for each year. So altogether, the number of available class places will be 1,840 students every year for year 5 entering to the OC school. So, for example, last year, there are total 15,025 applicants for the OC exam. Very high demand for the OC, isn't it? More than 15,000 every year. So to get a place for the OC, we can say that around top 12% of students will have a chance to get it. more than 15,000. Yes. So without the exam preparation, it'd be very difficult to get in. Yeah. Okay. Very high competition. And from, I think, last year, they introduced a new policy, equity placement policy. Maximum 20% of the total places they want reserved for the underrepresented group, like averaging low socioeducational group, rural and remote area students, disability. But usually around 2% of the students will get an offer according to the equity placement. Yeah. So that means for the normal applicant, they should positioned in top 10%. Yeah. To get into the OC, we can say around top 10% of students who will get a chance to get in the first place. Okay, OC exam date, I think everybody knows. It's Thursday, 27th of July. Yeah. So in term 3. Yeah. So until that time, we have just 4 months remaining. Yeah. Just 4 months. Yeah. So one holiday period and just one more term. Yeah. So it's 4 months. Within 4 months, we need to finish all the exam preparation and to consolidate all the exam preparation. Yeah. Okay, yes, let's recap all the important key dates during the application and outcome. So the application will open on 30th of March. Yeah, so they will open the application to the parents, and the application deadline will be 15th of May. So during term 1 and term 2, within 2 weeks, they need to, within 3 weeks, yes, they need to finish the application. And then, in early June, all your application will be forwarded to the school principal so that they can confirm the student details and verify all the condition and the student detail, and you just confirm through the system. And then your application will be confirmed by sending a test authority letter 2 weeks before the exam, so 13th July. Then there will be a test, just 1 day centralized OC exam that will take place on 27th of July. And but education said they will try to release the outcome on 20th of October. Yeah, these are main key dates we need to remember. Yeah, I can see lots of questions. Yeah, I will address after the presentation. Yeah. Okay, so you need to go to the application website when it will be open, which is on Thursday, 30th of March. And you need to go to the website, portal website, and submit your application by filling all the online field and complete. So this special portal website will provide lots of function. You can submit your application, you can modify your application, you can send a message to the team, and you can get the the inbox message from the team, including the test center, authority letter, and also you can check the outcome through this special portal website, and you can communicate with the team online, okay? Or online basis. So when you fill in the application form, you need to nominate the school choice, the school you want to apply. So you can apply maximum 2 schools first choice and second choice. So the first choice is most ideal school you wish to get in, and second school, we can say it's backup school in case. If the first school is not available, they will consider the second school. So 2 schools. So you need to think about the traveling time, the school location. You need to check the school location and traveling time. And also you need to assess your child's ability to get in, the academic performance by assessing the OC trial test for say Pre-Uni or other major performance like NetPlan as well. Yeah. So if you're not sure about your child's school choice, yes, then you can email me and I will assess and recommend some possible schools for you. Yeah. So just stay with me. Okay. So on the test today, there will be 3 tests: reading, mathematical reasoning, and thinking skills. 3 tests. Yeah. It will be paper-based test. Yeah. It's not an online test, it's a paper test. So they need to use the pencil and eraser. Yeah. And all questions will be multiple choice. And it will take around 1 hour, 40 minutes altogether. Yeah. So around 2 hours, including break time. Yeah. So 90 questions in 1 hour, 40 minutes. Yeah. Okay, previously in OC or selective, they calculate the total mark based on the exam and the additional mark, which is school mark, but they no longer consider any school assessment mark. So the outcome will be solely based on the exam performance. So performance in English, reading and mathematics, and thinking skills. Okay, so all equal weight, 33% in reading, 33% thinking skill, and 33% in mathematical reasoning. So equal weight for each test component. When you check the Department of Education website, you will be able to download the most recent OC exam papers, including the last year's one, 2022 one, yeah. And if your child hasn't tried this paper, they need to try. Yeah. Just give them the same exam conditions and let them to try. Or you can try by yourself and you will find out how it is challenging. Yeah. So just to check out the website and try by yourself. After that, you may watch our guide video. Okay? You can access through the cyber school or through the our Pre-Uni YouTube channel, and it will go through every single question in each test papers, and it will analyze the strategy for each exam question, how to solve the questions. Yeah. So you can check out our guide video as well. Yeah. Okay, so they said they will release outcome on 20th of October. So you will get the notification through the portal website, and you can download your child's OC exam outcome report. Yeah. So you can see the outcome table like this. This is sample screenshot. So in this case, the parent chose Beecroft Public School as the number 1 school choice, and second choice Dural Public School. And in this case, the students couldn't get into the Beecroft but his name is on the waiting list, reserve, and the reserve band F. Yeah. And yes, he got offer from Dural Public School. Yeah, then you need to choose whether you accept this offer or decline the offer. Yeah, you have to click accept button, not decline button. Yeah, in this case. Yeah. Once you decline the offer, you cannot revert. So please be careful when you accept the OC school offer. Yeah, and also you can download this kind of performance report about the exam. Yeah, as you can see, the reading, mathematical reading, thinking skill, yes, retest, and it is show the relative position of your child from all the candidate. Yeah, so in this case, yeah, the students achieve top 10% in reading and 15% in mathematical reasoning and thinking skill below 50%. So from last year, they no longer release any numerical score. Okay? The parents can only see the performance band, okay? Like this. Okay, so that's why many parents are concerned about how to figure out the suitable school choices. Yeah, because there is no school mark or the exam mark. So that's why Pre-Uni New College always conduct very thorough outcome analysis survey, yeah, based on our former students' result and their performance band. We can analyze the possible schools according to the band and also the trial test performance. Yeah. Okay, so now let's find out more details in each exam question style and types. And to do that, I invite our teacher, Mrs. Nala, yeah, who is conducting all the OC preparation classes. And she also involved in analyzing all the most recent exam question in OC. So she will provide more detailed information about the question type. Hello, Naila. Yeah. Are you ready? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nyla, Miss Nyla Ann, and I am a teacher at Pre-Uni New College. It's a privilege to be here tonight to be talking with everyone here and explaining through the different types of OC exam questions, as well as all the different components involved with it. And hopefully after tonight, you'll get a better insight on all things to do with OC. I've been teaching in particular, many of the opportunity class trial test exam courses, as well as the Year 4 WEMT. So I think I have a pretty thorough knowledge in being able to explain through all things related to this. So why don't we begin? What I'll be going through is the three different components, first going through English, then focusing on mathematical reasoning, and then on thinking skills. And once again, if you do have any questions, please list it on the chat and we'll get back to you. Okay, so why don't we begin? So first of all, we've got our reading test. Now, within our reading test, the structure of it is that there are 25 questions that students have to complete within a 30-minute time frame. Now, what these questions are, they are multiple choice based, and the answer options will be between A to D, as well as one component of the reading test being from A to F. And so within this test, it is designed to really focus on a variety of reading skills and includes a diverse range of texts such as youth fiction, factual and informational text, poetry, magazine articles, as well as traditional tales. So it really encompasses a broad range of reading that students should be familiar with, and something that hopefully they get exposed to within their spare time, and also within the courses that we offer. We do provide like a whole wide range of texts that they do slowly become familiar with. Okay, so within the reading test, like we've said, there are 4 main parts. So particularly with reading, there is a really set structure that is in a sense quite good, and it really tries to test on a wide variety of skills. And so within here, having quite a strong knowledge on it, you know that it's not going to really change. And so it's really important to familiarize yourself on how these different sections work, and then seeing where exactly is your child weak within, and then working on that particular part. So if you have a look here, part 1, section 1 is looking at, and you can see here in the table, they've got your types of text and the number of questions that are involved with that. So part 1 is looking at narratives or descriptive extracts from a piece of youth work, youth fiction, and the normal amount of questions is 6 questions. Part 2, you've got a little poem, which encompasses 5 questions. Part 3 is your factual or informational text with 6 sentences, where you have to label them from A to F removed, which is 6 questions. And then part 4 is when you've got your 4 short texts on a related theme, and that involves 8 questions. Now, it's really important that you're able to know where your weaknesses or where your strengths are at, because that's when you can focus on them. And getting 1 or 2 questions correct or incorrect within each component can really result in getting into that top OC school, that preferred OC school, or not making it in. So it's quite important knowing how to solve each of these parts. So let's go through each section in some detail. So before we do that though, I want to just cover through some text themes. So the OC reading test utilizes like a wide range of text sources that covers a wide range of themes or sources. And so maybe these are some things that you can take note of. Usually the texts are sometimes about the Australian experiences written by Australian authors or cultures that are within. So we know that Australia is quite a multicultural country, and so there'd be quite a few texts that are related to that, or even in particular Aboriginal Indigenous culture is also talked about within here. So that's one theme to be focusing on. The second thing is looking at extracts from classic texts. So being familiar with the type of language that it's using, that is used within that time period, is quite an important, it's quite a niche skill as well to know about, because it's not something that students these days are quite familiar with, but it's having that little knowledge and also being familiar with that would be a really good point to take on. Another theme would be authors from around the world. So knowing those famous authors and those really classic, rich literature texts from authors from a worldwide range is quite important. And then you've got your general themes, which are just overall your general knowledge. And so and you might be asking why this is the case. Well, this is not only to ensure students have a built knowledge of ideas, but it's also to cater for a wide variety of students who come from different backgrounds, and seeing and just tapping into all those different banks of general knowledge. So that's why it's quite important just knowing and being able to identify themes within each text, and you'll see that there could be a common thread between them. Okay, so having a look at the first part, we've got our reading test part 1. Now, part 1, if we remember, it's an extract from a piece of modern text, and it requires students to analyze and show understanding of the text through the following elements. So you can see here that some of these questions that might be asked based on this text is quite an extensive list, and that involves stylistic features. So what kind of features do you are seen within the text? So is it based on figurative language techniques, certain tones and implied meanings? If you have a look at as well here, you can see that we're focusing on the meaning of words within context. So knowing how to analyze and understand key pieces of vocabulary within a text, because you know that words have multiple meanings, and just being able to tap into certain words and their vocabulary. Implied meaning, so this is where you are looking at inferencing, the effect of language features and words, phrases used, and how does that affect and enhance the meaning, or the meaning that the author is trying to put across. Opinions, attitudes, and feelings. So this is where it focuses on author's tone, and sometimes that might be tricky to understand, but ultimately asking yourself, or the students asking themselves, how do you feel after reading this? What kind of ideas do you get from here? Exemplification and comparison between certain parts within the text, the writer's purpose, so the point of this text, the text organization and text structure, as well as identifying and understanding the effect of different viewpoints. So there is a broad scope within here that's being tested on, and it's quite important just to be quite exposed to the wide variety of text and questions that are involved within here. Okay, so that's part one. If you have a look on this next slide, this is an example of from one of the sample papers given by the Department of Education, a part one text. And so you can see here that this text, the theme is, or the source is from a cultural, worldly background. And so sometimes what might throw students off is like the names, certain words, and just not being familiar with the culture, which might actually confuse some students. And so you can see here on the right hand side, the third image is the 6 questions that are related to it. And so you can see that there's a question number 4 is a vocab question, and just knowing what that word means in relation to the text, and how that actually gives us more information, or gives us like an implied meaning overall as well. And so you can see here that it's not just answering literal questions like, how old was Namo, and looking back at the text, but also looking at the clues within the text to be able to answer answer the question. So there's quite a lot of elements involved, and where it makes it a bit more tricky, but it's really trying to focus on students understanding how they can analyze the text further. And it's the skill that we want our high potential students to really hone in on and refine. Okay, so that is part 1. Now, reading test part 2 is always a poem. And so it is a poem, and it's not going to assess students on literary terms, but rather to understand the following that's written down below. And the first thing is the effect of stylistic features, including the use of figurative language techniques, because we know that within poetry, there's a really strong enriching use of figurative language, because what's so interesting about poems is that it doesn't use a whole lot of words. It uses like a minimal amount of words to convey a big meaning. And so a bigger meaning, an overall theme, and there's a lot of hidden ideas within there. And so this is where students have to be somewhat familiar with these figurative language techniques. Also understanding the implicit meaning within the poem. Some of them are going to be quite literal, and you can see it based on the poem. Other times you might have to, students might have to read the poem a few times to be able to understand the meaning that's trying to come across. The next thing is understanding the text organization and structure. And so a lot of the times I stress this importance quite a lot, because we can see that it's quite important knowing structures of different poems, because yes, we do have our free verse poems, but we do also have poems that are more focused on set structures like sonnets, ballads, rhyme scheme, and sometimes rhyme scheme can be quite a tricky concept to grasp at first. So it's quite important knowing how to work on these points. So understanding text organization and structure is a big thing as well. The next thing is looking at the effect of language features and words/phrases used. So a lot of the times you might have to ask yourself, what's the whole point of using this particular language feature within here? Why have these words been used rather than other words? Because remember, poetry is a very set amount of words used, and it's really important that you're able to understand why those words have been used and the vocabulary behind it. And finally, writer's purpose. So what was the whole point of the writer writing this text overall? So that is the reading test part 2 poem. And on the next slide, we can see here an example. This poem is by William Hart Smith, which is an Australian author. And so you can see here that his poem is written in a couplet form, and just looking very carefully at the structure of it, you can see that there are questions based on this poem. And so you can see here, looking at the ideas and looking at the implied meanings to understand and analyze the text. So, and you can see that there are different parts, knowing what it means by stanzas, what it means by lines as well, because we're not just looking at paragraphs, but we're looking at it in a more under a microscope, where we're looking at it line by line. So really important parts within our poetry section. Okay, so that is part 2. Having a look at part 3 now, we are looking at a gapped text. Now, a gapped text is something that might be a really tricky component to be familiar with, but once students are familiar with this and know the how-tos of this, it becomes a little bit more easier, but it is quite a challenging part, okay? So a gap text is a gap match task, or also known as a closed passage. Now, students have to decide which sentence, so rather than just one word that students are usually familiar with, it's now looking at which sentence best fits each gap, which can be quite a challenge. And there's always that one extra sentence that they give that doesn't actually match with anything, that kind of throws off students. So it's quite important that they really understand it. Now, the focus of this gap text section, part 3, is looking at understanding textual cohesion. Now, what it means by cohesion is looking at it as how well does it flow? Does it make sense if I read through the whole text with all the completed sentences? And usually when we ask our students this, when we go through the paper afterwards, we usually ask ourselves, does that flow? Does that make sense? Does the sentence that we've just put in there, does it flow from the sentence previous, and does it lead into the next sentence? Because remember, within a paragraph, every single sentence has a purpose and it has a flow within. So that's the main focus for number 1. Now, number 2 is understanding the structure of the text. Now, sometimes we can see that within our gap text texts, there are some parts that are more structured, where there are subheadings that make it a bit easier, but most of the time that's not the case. So knowing the structure of what kind of text that this is first would help to better answer these questions. And once again, looking for the flow within the text, which really relates to textual cohesion. Now, personally, what I see is that the gap text is probably one of the trickier components to this, because within this one, once you make a mistake with one of them, then there's a high chance that you're going to get the other ones wrong, because they're all highly related to each other. Because the questions, there are 6 options to choose from, but you can only use each option once. And so what's really important is being flexible with changing your answer options. So to give you a bit of perspective, I'm going to go over to the next slide. So this is an example of a gapped text. And so you can see here, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 empty sections within this whole text. And usually the gap texts are informative text or possibly persuasive text, but mostly informative text. And you can see that there, within the box down below, there are options A to G, which is 7 different sentences. Now, what you notice is, say for 12, the answer is A, then but that's not actually the case, and 13 was A, that means that both 12 and 13 are incorrect. So you have to understand that within this part 3, if you get 1 or 2 questions wrong, then it really can disadvantage students, because they might get the other questions wrong as well, because you can only use each option once. And so that's why it's quite important to get this practice. And there isn't too many resources in relation to this, so it's quite tricky to get that practice in here. So that's why, and what we've noticed is that the more students are exposed to this, the better they become at it. And that's what I've noticed personally when we're doing our Year 4 WMT, and when we look at English extension and there is some gap text, for first-time students, they are a little confused with how this works. So just really knowing and just practicing how this, and knowing the clues within it, that's quite important. Okay, so that is the gap text section. And finally, looking at reading test part 4 is the multiple extracts questions. And so the way that this works is that there are 4 short extracts, and these 4 short extracts are involved with 3 different parts. 1, multiple sources. They are different styles and they have different purposes, but they all are related to each other based on the same surrounding theme. Now, these sources could be involved from blogs, articles, extracts from narratives, reviews, reports, personal accounts. It's going to come from a wide range of sources. And but like we said, it's different styles and there are different purposes. So there might be some that have a positive view to the topic, some that might have a negative view to the topic. And so just being able to quickly identify those points is quite important. Now, if we have a look here, down below, we've got an example. And you can see here that the theme of the 4 extracts is to do with color. There are 8 questions, all asking questions in relation to analyzing these 4 extracts and finding which extract explains or describes, refers, mentions, gives evidence within the 4 texts. And so you can see here that it's quite important to be able to quickly read through, understand, and be able to look by and find those evidence points to be able to help you answer those questions. Okay, so that is based on 4 extracts. And sometimes what I see is students can write down quickly like a word or 2 on what each extract is, and that really helps them to be able to look back quickly and answer those questions in relation to it. Okay, so that is our 4 main questions in relation to our reading text. Okay, so moving on to the next part, which is mathematical reasoning. Now, mathematical reasoning, the way that it's structured is that there are 35 questions to answer within a 40-minute time frame. Now, all multiple choice questions are give a range of options of A to E. So that's 5 different answer options. Now, the test is designed to assess students' mathematical reasoning skills within a number of different areas, such as space and geometry, statistics and data, number and algebra, and shapes and measurement. So it's quite a broad range. It's basically everything that should be covered within the New South Wales mathematics syllabus, and which is quite broad as well in itself. And so all questions are in relation to these 4 main components or strands. Now, from a few years ago till now, the test has changed from mathematics to mathematical reasoning, and you might be wondering, what exactly is that difference? Well, with mathematics, one thing you need to understand is that mathematics focuses on knowledge of formulas and mathematical concepts. And that's still the case within mathematical reasoning, but they take it an extra step. And mathematical reasoning is where they're using reasoning and mathematical concepts to help solve that problem. And so they're really focusing on students being able to look at the question and being able to ask themselves, okay, what kind of formulas or mathematical concepts do I need to use to be able to answer that question? And that might involve looking very carefully and or using like many different parts of the questions to be able to answer this, or different strands and different parts to be able to answer this question. So it's quite important to be able to be familiar or quite have a sound or good foundation of any of all strands within mathematics, because what I see is that if that sound knowledge is not there, it becomes quite tricky to perform well within mathematical reasoning. Okay, so if we have a look, this is an example question. If we quickly read it together, it says a factory makes 3 cars every 8 hours. Within here, what I recommend, and sometimes students might find tricky already, is that it's not written into a number sentence. So that's something that some students find tricky. So one thing that they need to do is write it into a number sentence. 3 cars is equal to 8 hours. If a car factory runs all day and all night, Monday to Sunday, how many cars does it make in a whole week? So even within here, boys and within here, what we need to know is time. We need to know how number sentences work and multiplication. So all of these elements need to be put into here to be able to answer this question. And so this is what makes a mathematical reasoning question a mathematical reasoning question. And multiplication is involved within here as well. Okay, so if we look at another example question, or there are 2 within here that we've listed. The first one, number 8, you can see here that it's a diagram, and knowing how this diagram works will help you to answer this question as well. The values of stars are multiplied. 3 by 3 is equal to 9. So knowing how each of these sections are in relation to each other, and the diagrams below work in the same way. So if we know how one way works, then the others should be worked the same way as well. And so being able to see that, you can see that it's knowledge of tables, knowledge of like graphs and tables, being able to read that, knowledge of number sentences, in particular with multiplication, and then finally coming down to that final answer, knowing what would fit within there. Okay, and so that is another example of a mathematical reasoning question. On the right-hand side, question 9, which of these 3-dimensional objects has exactly 5 faces, 8 edges, and 5 vertices? Now, this is within here a type of question that involves space and knowing your knowledge of shapes. And so really understanding what exactly faces, edges, and vertices are and how this works. And so this is like a straight up space question, space and geometry question, but knowing all of these things is quite an important element. Now, one thing that we need to understand is that how we pace ourselves within the test is also quite important. So if a question does take a really long time to solve, remember, each question is still only worth 1 mark. This is in itself a skill to know how to work under exam conditions. So it's quite important to get that practice in working under pressure. So these are some example questions in relation to mathematical reasoning. And just one thing as well, everyone, is knowing that they're not going to go, well, they will test within the knowledge capacity of what is expected of a Year 4 student. So all of these concepts are within stage level, which means at Year 4 level, something that's should have been understood from Kindy to Year 4, and they're just getting students to look at it in a bit more of a scope where they're thinking outside the box as well. Okay, so that is mathematical reasoning. Why don't we have a look now at thinking skills? Now, thinking skills is probably the most newest form or the biggest change that's happened within the OC and selective part of education. And so just quickly going through this, students are to answer 30 questions within a 30-minute time frame. Now, all questions are multiple choice, so you've got 4 answer options to choose from, and the text the test is designed to assess students' verbal, spatial, and numerical reasoning skills. So it's really looking at all components of English, looking at mathematics, looking at your reasoning skills as well. And it's looking at the following types of questions, where you're looking at finding procedures, identifying similarities. So they're kind of like soft skills, evaluating evidence and reasoning, identifying mistakes, and logical analysis. So there is a lot of components involved within the thinking skills test. Now, before thinking skills, I'm pretty sure, or maybe some of you may not be as familiar, but there was a high focus on general ability. General ability is still a component of thinking skills, and it's still quite an important part. So general ability tests assess students' reasoning skills such as verbal, numerical, abstract, so more visual, but GA is a more surface level thinking. So knowing the difference between thinking skills and general ability. Now, thinking skills tests focus on two main skill sets, and that is problem solving skills as well as critical thinking skills. Now, problem solving skills involves numerical skills while critically thinking, and that involves analyzing and reasoning, and it's a really high form of higher order thinking overall. Now, although having many differences between the thinking skills and general ability, there are still similarities between them. Number one is that both tests are still aptitude type tests. They're just focusing on different elements between them. And like we've mentioned before, thinking skills is more higher order, general ability is more surface level. So I would still highly recommend, as if it's starting or on the side, working through general ability questions just to familiarize yourself with just knowing the foundations of what it means to think more deeply, and then working through to thinking skills as well. Now, that's number one. And another similarity is that they rely on students' underlying mental capacities rather than a student's learned skills and knowledge. So being able to see a question and being able to go look at it and basically using that higher order thinking to solve that. All right. If we have a look here quickly, this is a difference between thinking skills and general ability. You can see here that they both use data graphs overall, but how the question is being used is quite different. In the thinking skills section, it also involves mathematics. You can see here that there's a knowledge of angles. You can see that there's fractions and there's percentages involved, which can be quite a challenge when first looking at this. However, on the general ability section, it's being able to know how this graph works to be able to answer this question. So you can see that thinking skills, there's definitely that extra step that needs to be taken to be able to solve this question. If we have a look at another one, so that one, the previous two questions example were based on problem solving and mathematics. This one is more based on logic, and you can see on the left-hand side, it's really getting students to focus on really on topics that are general overall, but really critically thinking to be able to identify main conclusions, while the general ability is more focused on logic, which is still quite an important part, but you can see that there is a difference between the two. Once again, just to see as a visual, there's the different types of thinking skills questions. So you've got your problem solving and your critical thinking types of questions. That's how they branch out. There are definitely different, a more wider range of thinking skills questions, but this is what the OC focuses on. Types of problem solving questions, we have our finding procedures questions, identifying similarity, as well as relevant selections questions. And within here, you can see that there are different components or strands that are focused on as well. So it's quite broad, and it's just a matter of exposing yourself to as many different types of questions as possible to be able to familiarize yourself with it and just have a strong knowledge overall. Okay, the types of critical thinking questions. We've got our different strands. So we've got applying principles, assessing the impact of additional evidence, detect reasoning errors, drawing a conclusion, identifying an assumption, identifying the main conclusion, and matching arguments. And within here, there are still other components talked about as well. So you can see that thinking skills is a really broad range of questions that are involved. Solving thinking skills questions. So within here, there is a set of 5 steps that can be used to help students break down a question, because we know that it can be quite daunting seeing a really like a thinking skills questions or being exposed to a thinking skills question the first time and not knowing how to do it. So in this QR code is a link to how we can better solve thinking skills questions, and have a try using this when you're solving thinking skills questions, and because it is quite helpful, and it might be your first stepping stone in knowing how to effectively solve thinking skills questions. Okay, some example of problem-solving thinking skills questions. This is from the most recent OC paper, so the 2022 Opportunity Class Pass paper. The first one is really focused on points and competitions, and seeing how this works to be able to then reflect it onto the actual results. So you can see here where it works through, and then answering the question based on that. And then on the right-hand side is another type of question, but really focusing, having that element of distance as well, but seeing, like, you can see that the wording can make it quite tricky as well. So I highly recommend when solving this, drawing a diagram. Diagrams do take that extra bit of time to have to draw, but it does ultimately benefit, and it really does prevent mistakes from happening. And yeah, because when we're checking our work, we can always go back and be able to see if there's any errors involved with that. So this is some examples of problem-solving questions. Now, on the next part here, this is an example of a critical thinking question. It's from the most recent thinking skills paper as well. You can see the types of questions that are involved, and it's highly reflective of the questions that we do here at Pre-Uni as well. So it's quite important to see that what we're doing is trying to prepare our students to ultimately perform well, and we're giving that helping hand to them to reach their potential. Okay. This is another example. I remember solving this question personally and seeing that it can be quite tricky, but also thinking outside the box to be able to solve this question is quite it's actually a really good question to see, because it involves like a whole lot of scopes and a lot of thinking to be able to solve it. And so, yeah, seeing that as well. Okay, now how to prepare for the thinking skills questions. So one method of preparation that we gave was trying out the 5 steps involved to be able to solve a thinking skills question. But overall, we can see that we need to make sure that we're familiar with the test process, utilizing all available information as well as resources, understanding the question types, purposes, and methods of solving such questions, tracking progress of your strengths and weaknesses. What I notice in students who really know their strengths and weaknesses, they're able to better hone in on their weaknesses to improve that over the set period of OC tests. Setting that time frame, really putting yourself within that test condition format, and then reviewing questions through available resources. And most importantly, asking questions. I think the biggest thing is that as a teacher, we can't really read minds, so it's really important to voice students voice their concerns, or if they don't understand everything, how to anything that they don't understand or need more clarification with overall. Yeah, so that's the biggest things that we need to make sure that we're doing. So I will be handing it back to David now to go through and finish the rest of this webinar. Thank you for having me, and if you have any questions, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Naila. Yeah, it was a great information for our parents. And I think most of the parents have better idea about the exam format and the question style. Yeah. Okay, so it's nearly 1 hour. Huh? Okay, yeah, I will make it short. Yeah. So yeah, we have just 4 months before the exam. So I believe we are putting the best program for the OC preparation course, yeah, including WEMT and OC trial test practice. And also we'd like to utilize our autumn school holiday period. Yeah, it will be the last holiday period we can utilize. And also we are planning to do some final mock exam event with annual intensive OC trial test just before the exam day. Yeah, we will organize special tests so that they can practice at the last moment and overcome any exam nerves before the exam. Okay. Yeah. So in autumn school holiday period, we will make use of both week 1 and week 2. So 9 days in total. So during the first week, yeah, we will focus on the consolidate all the exam topics with the lesson material, and they can revise all required exam topics and concept and theory. So it will be theory lesson for 4 days. And from the second week, yeah, we will start OC trial test practice. Yeah, again, it will be quite intensive. One test per day over 5 days. So the student can finish 5 sets of OC trial test papers in 5 days. Okay. Yeah. So this is the schedule for the autumn OCTTC. So if your child need more practice in OC trial test, yes, it is highly recommendable. Yeah. So every day they will finish one set of tests, reading and mathematical reasoning and thinking skill in a day over 5 days. Yes. Okay. And then we will start WMT course. It is the last OC test practice period, term 2. So we will provide lots of revision material and it will cover all required subjects, mathematical reasoning, thinking skill, and reading comprehensions. And also we will provide lots of revision material and online homework on cyber school. Yes. All students should make use of all the cyber school lesson material as well. And yes, these are all available cyber school services for WMT students, and parents should monitor their child's cyber school homework activity. Yes. And OC trial test, yeah, including autumn OCTTC, yeah, we have 16 OC trial tests remaining until the exam. And the last annual intensive OC will offer the very realistic exam paper just before the exam. Yes, just before the exam. So total 17 practice, 17 exam papers are waiting for your child. Okay? Yeah. Okay, I think we'd better move on to the Q&A. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look our parents' question. Oh my God. Yeah, we have more than 500 parents at the moment. So let me scroll down. Okay. Yes, maybe we have just 10 minutes remaining. So, yeah. Um, Yeah, some parents asking whether any recommendable books outside. Yeah, I can't find any better book than Pre-Uni WMT material. So you may check all other outside material from bookshop, but it's all about standard assessment like NetPlan. For the OC preparation, yeah, it should be quite advanced level, like a year for WNT. So please make use of our material as the revision resources. Okay, and okay, if students got two offer from the school choice, it doesn't happen because if students got both offer from both schools, there will be just one offer according to your preference. So the first school will be the offered school, and second school will not be consideration. It will be it's not applicable for the offer. So just the one school offer. Yeah. Mm, yeah, I think during the OCTTC, we are providing workbook. Yeah, the handout. Yeah, it can be taken to home. Yeah, of course. That's for students' copy. Yeah. Um, is there any break between the component? Yes, there will be a break. Yeah, between the test. It will be a 10 or 15 minutes break for the toilet. Yeah. Yes, we are recording this session, so you can watch it again after finishing the session. Yeah. What is average success rate of the pre-uni students OC? It's very hard to answer, but I mentioned that the total the competition rate, only the top 10% of students will get an offer from more than 15,000. At pre-uni we have around 1,000 to 1,200 OCTTC students every year. Yeah. I think last year we had 1,180 something. Yeah. And we got more than 400 successful students from those groups. So that means around 35%. Yeah, just a general idea. Yeah. Okay, and then okay, this slide. Yeah, I will try to share this slide using the Cyber School news section. So you can go to the Cyber School and check the slide. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Same question. Yeah. Yes. So the slide will be available on Cyber School, not by email. Okay. Yeah. And yeah, my email address. Yeah. You can email me at david@newcollege.com today. So if you have any specific question, I'm more than welcome to receive your email, and I will answer as many as early as possible. Okay. Okay, then let's wrap up. Yeah, so 4 months is remaining, and we need to make use of all remaining period. And just make sure your child complete your term test by tomorrow. And yes, the autumn course we are offering the early bird discount until next Saturday. So if you want to get a maximum discount, please enroll by next week. And term one enrollment booking, is open now, so you can make a booking for the term two course as well, and get the early bird discount, by 11th of April. Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you for your time for tonight, and I will see you again in term two with the more latest information again. Okay, thank you very much, and have a great evening.